Hey, welcome to the Renaissance Woodworker Shop Update for October 7th, 2016. This week I published a video on the making of my artisanal fly swatter, and people seem to really like it, and I really like the fly swatter. I've been having kind of a lot of fun with it. But there were some questions that came up from the video, and I wanted to address a few of them. I've done a little bit of fretwork in the past, but this was really the first time that I've done kind of a freeform deal like this. I found this Roycroft rose pattern, just sketched it out and cut the whole thing out, and I just had so much fun with it. I can definitely see doing a lot more of that. And the question about my bird's mouth fixture, that's what this thing is called, came up, and somebody had asked if I was going to show how I made it, and this was actually a project for the hand tool school semester 2. It was a project to apply the refining of curves, not only the cutting, but the refining of curves by hand. So these corbels on the side with some molded detail patterns and everything was really the applied part of the project. The bird's mouth itself, there's really not much to it. It's just two pieces of wood. In this case, I used white oak. I dovetailed them at the corner to get a nice right angle, and then I added the corbels in. I've got a nice long grain to long grain connection here, and then I just used cut nails across the top to secure everything in place. And I cut the V pattern, the bird's mouth, and the little hole in the center, and it makes a phenomenal working platform for fret saw work or any kind of really detailed work where you need to be up high. This just slips into my leg vise. It would work in a face vise or whatever. In fact, you can actually see a bit of Sharpie here where I have discovered over the years of working with this what kind of the optimal height would be. So I line my leg vise chop up with that Sharpie line, tighten it down, and it's really the perfect working height for me. The next question I had was about the saw and the blade that I was using. Yes, this is a new concept fret saw with a titanium birdcage frame here. And for this particular fretwork, I was using a 32 points per inch saw blade. It's incredibly fine and obviously not something you want to use on thicker stock. But in the case of the veneer work I was doing, it's absolutely perfect. And in using this bird's mouth, you can make longer, straighter cuts in this little V-notch. And if you need to do some real tight turning, working in this center section is really nice because I've got free range of motion to move the saw all the way around. But in practice, I'm really keeping the saw just where it is. Occasionally I'll do a little bit of turning here and there, but I'm mostly turning the stock on top of the bird's mouth. So it's very much like a scroll saw. In fact, it's a hand-powered scroll saw where I'm using a reciprocal motion here and I'm moving the stock along the curve. The nice thing about working on a bird's mouth like this is I've got gravity kind of keeping the saw running straight up and down. So I get a nice plumb cut this way. When I've got the bird's mouth up really, really high, the body mechanics work out nicely too. I'm not stooping, I'm not gonna get a sore shoulder or back or whatever. And just the way my arm is positioned, it's very natural to keep that cut nice and plumb, and I've got lots of leverage on the cut as well. I really like working on this thing, and in the future, I think as I try to do a little bit more intricate work, I'll probably look to include some sort of additional work surface to put over top of it that has a much smaller hole. These bigger holes are for kind of grosser work, but if I've got really fine stuff and really thin stock, too much of a hole here could cause problems. It'll cause the stock to kind of jump around a little bit. I could also lose small pieces through the holes. So that's the bird's mouth. This is the fret saw I was using, and I hope that answers the questions I had about this stage of that fly swatter build. Also going on this week, I drew the names for the winners of my Bad Axe saw giveaway. Anybody who had become an apprentice over the last month of the hand tool school's name was entered, and I had a nice group of people to pull from, and I'm shipping out saws and bench hooks tomorrow to 3 very happy winners. So thank you to everybody who joined apprenticeship, and congratulations to the Bad Axe winners. Second, I had a friend visit me at the lumberyard actually to pick up some material, and he brought along this piece of holly. He'd watched in one of the previous shop updates how I was starting to dabble in stringing an inlay with holly, and he had a whole bunch of holly sawn up from a tree that was felled. So I've got this great like 9-foot long piece of just beautiful white holly. I can't wait to play around with it. So thank you very much, Jonathan. It's going to get some really good use. In fact, I think it's going to get used on an upcoming project. Let's go out to the lumber shed real quick and I'll show you what's going on in my head. I came out here the other day to get a bird's eye maple board. I've got a side table project in the hand tool school, and the drawer fronts are going to be veneered with bird's eye maple. So I wanted to bring that board in and let it to start to acclimate to the shop. And it's not that I didn't know that this board was in here, but I had kind of forgotten about it. And I stumbled across this beautiful offcut of walnut, and I just got an idea for a project. So check this out. This board is 18 inches wide, huge knot in the middle, and all this crotch figure swirling around it. The board is an 8/4 board. It's actually a little heavy of 8/4. It's got a little bit of a live edge up here. On the other side, oh, it's heavy. I've got a live edge where the crotch started to split apart. A lot of interesting stuff, some cool sap, and just lots and lots and lots of interesting swirls and figure. Now, because of the knot, because of the checks, because of the live edge, it was cut off of the bigger piece as a defect. And you can see somebody used a chainsaw to do it, and they left a big chainsaw scar here. So, you know, it's a gorgeous board, and most woodworkers look at this and go, why was this thrown out? But I rescued it, and I'm thinking now that I've got a really cool design for a side table of sorts, but using a cool cantilevered style underneath that would have a through tenon that would come up right here where this chainsaw scar is. So I can just cut out that through tenon. The bottom I'm gonna do in kind of a timber frame construction. I've got some 6x6 fir floating around, just small offcuts floating around that I think would make a great kind of L-shaped frame to support the table underneath. And I can probably use that holly for just a tiny little contrasting stringing around the edge. I think that there's so much going on with the top of all this figure that adding just that little kind of punctuation line of holly would look really, really cool. So this is something that's kind of brewing around in my head. I have no idea when I'm going to get to it, but I've already started doing drawings, and I don't know about you guys, but I get real excited at this kind of design stage of a project. And it might be months and months before I actually get to actually building it, but this type of wood is just screaming out for an inspired project. And I'm thinking that since I'm going to do kind of a timber frame style construction, this might be a good project for me to dive headfirst into the Japanese tools and joinery that I've been interested in for a long time. So one of the things about being a content producer is I get a chance to experiment with a lot of different techniques. And I always want to try some of these techniques. There's just sometimes not the time, or sometimes I don't have the tools. So I do think that this project I will dedicate some time into learning Japanese tooling and Japanese carpentry methods. But yeah, I mean, this walnut board kind of says it all. So on that note, I'll leave you there. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I will see you next week.